Charlie XCX's music, fashion, film. Oh, what an album. Oh, it was so profound. It's about music and fashion and film. Okay, I want to start off this review by saying I recognize the satirical parts of this album. Maybe I don't recognize the extent of the satire, but if the entire thing is satire, if what I'm going to discuss, if I discuss something as though it is not satire and it is satire, don't feel the need to correct me in the comments because that's arguably worse. You have to have some content in your thing. And a satire ultimately is supposed to be a critique of whatever it's a satirical version of. It's supposed to be somewhat profound. It's supposed to be, it has to exist for some reason. And oftentimes that's because it's funny, because it's, profound and observant. That's it. Those are the two. Maybe there's more, but regardless, this album checks none of the boxes for me. I found it to be absolutely terrible, unlistenable, unfun, not just boring. I listened to it at work while I was doing some latent task. If anybody wants to question how I listened to it, I wasn't paying. I was paying attention to the album, and I listened to all the words and stuff, and it was terrible. And no matter what, I kept trying to decipher what the greater meaning was, and I just couldn't. So maybe this is a virtue of my stupidity, but if so, let it be known that this echelon of human intelligence does not like this album because they can't understand it. I mean, I know that's not how it works, but you get what I'm saying. Um, anyways, the album was boring. It was boring at best, and it was unlistenable at worst. None of the tracks particularly stood out to me, except for the last track, obviously. And that's because the last track was easily unlistenable. It literally made me want to pull my headphones off, but I sat there waiting, and it just kept going. It was terrible. I mean, what are we doing? Why does it sound like that? What is the significance? Oh, you looped it a million times and overlapped it with with no rhythm involved, and it's just terrible to listen to. I guess it's more significant now because David Cronenberg said it, and he's like rich and famous and shit. Like, look, I'm not saying people who are experts in their field obviously have shit to say, and you should listen to them about it. But like, what he was saying was bordering on incoherent, and it was kind of just the parts that were coherent was like it was vapid. It's like, well, yeah, death is a necessity, and death is a fact of life, and yeah, it's great that death exists, and you shouldn't strive for immortality because you're going to be left disappointed on your deathbed. That's what I got out of it. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe there's something else going on, but that's what I got out of that. And it's really just like I might be misplacing my biases, whatever. But to me, it feels like a bunch of like I'm wealthy and I'm famous. And even though I'm saying these things that are normal, observed facts of life that everybody's aware of, and articulating them in a way that doesn't provide any insight whatsoever as to what you already knew, because I'm saying it, you are going to appreciate it more. You know, even though they're adding absolutely nothing. It's vapid. And vapid is fine. Vapid is fine completely when I listen to music. I am the guy who if music sound like I have listened to really corny ass albums a lot that just sound good to me. You know, but this album, it does nothing interesting in the production, as far as I'm concerned, except for the very end, which is interesting in that I would never have done it myself. I would never choose to do this if I had the expertise. Even if it is the last track is actively a bad choice and is the only thing that I remember from this album. There maybe were one or two times where I thought, "Oh, well, this is kind of interesting and good to listen to," and that's about it. But it wasn't good enough to listen to. Like it would be like a 3 second segment, and it wouldn't be like the most beautiful harmony you had ever heard. It'd be like a kind of interesting production choice. Um, And yeah, it was just vapid and annoying. And all the satire just failed. And maybe the whole thing was satire. If so, it still failed, you know? And to me, the last track did not feel like satire. And to me, it felt like Charlie was just being, oh, I'm with a French girl, and we're talking about life, and she said something, blah, blah, blah. Okay, like, she's French, dude. We get it. You're rich. You go to Paris and hang out with French people and do drugs and shit. Like, oh my God. It was almost like a retrospective on how awesome, but also sometimes it's bad being super ultra wealthy for your entire life and famous and being this awesome, sexy, like cool girl. Like, bro. At what point she complains that like somebody made a comment on her appearance and it's like, who gives a fuck, bro? She said her homegirl said she dressed like a slut. How would you not know this? Charlie XCX, were you not aware of the way you dressed? Were you somehow completely oblivious when everybody is trying to follow what you do and actively calling it what it is? You were oblivious to this. Your homegirl saying this to you made you recognize this. Maybe it's a satire. I don't care, bro. Either way, it sucks. This album was trash. Bad. It was just bad. That's my rating for it. Bad out of 10, bro.